and that is that in America today, tragically, we have a broken criminal justice system. I want all of you to be thinking about how it happens that in America today, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. 2.2 million people in jail, largely African American, Latino, Native American. We spend $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. We have private prisons making money by jailing, keeping people in jail. Together, we are going to reform a very broken criminal justice system. Now, the reason why our campaign is doing so well, and the reason why I think we're going to win here in Maine, is because we're doing something that is very radical. Instead of spending half my life begging billionaires for campaign contributions, we are listening to the American people. We are listening to workers in this country, many of whom are trying to survive on $8, $9, $10 an hour. And you know what? They cannot survive on $8, $9, $10 an hour. So let us be very clear. The minimum wage, federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. And together, we are going to raise that minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. It is not a wild socialist idea to say that if somebody works 40 or 50 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. As it happens, here in Maine, you have a lot of senior citizens. You're an older state, as is the state of Vermont. And I have talked to seniors all across this country. What they tell me is they cannot make it on $11,000 or $12,000 a year Social Security. So think about the reality. Put yourself into the head of a disabled veteran, a senior citizen, trying to get by on $12,000 a year, having to purchase health care, having to purchase prescription drugs, having to keep your home warm in a Maine or Vermont winter. And you know what? You're right. You can't do it. Now, many of my Republican colleagues in the Senate, they think we should cut Social Security. I've got some bad news for them. Not only are we not going to cut Social Security, we're going to expand Social Security. And we are going to make sure that those men and women who put their lives on the line to defend us, veterans and disabled veterans, are going to get the health care and the benefits. as we go around the country, state after state, we are listening to the young people. And what the young people are telling us is, how does it happen that they end up in $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 in debt because they wanted to get a good education? How many people here have student debt? So I have talked to people all of I have a woman in Burlington. She wanted to become a doctor, and she wanted to practice primary health care, and we need primary health care physicians. She's doing it, $300,000 in debt. Talked to a young woman in Iowa, wanted to become a dentist, graduated dental school, $400,000 in debt. Talked to a guy 55 years of age in Nevada. He's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than he was when he took out the debt in the first place. What this campaign is about is thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of the status quo. Think about it for a second. Why should people have to be paying off horrific levels of student debt for decades? For what crime did they commit? Why are they being punished for trying to get an education? So we're going to do two things. Number one, in the year 2016, and again, this is thinking outside of the box. 100 years ago, in Maine or Vermont, people fought for free public education. Pretty radical idea. And what the people said is, we don't want our kids, just because we're working class, we're low income, we don't want our kids just to have to work in the factories in Maine or on the farms in Vermont. We want our kids to get an education. And what people fought for was an education, free education, first grade through 12th grade. Pretty good. Well, you know what? The world has changed in the last 50 years. 50 years ago, you had a high school degree. You know how to get a pretty good job. Today, that is not the case. And that is why I believe that when we talk about public education today, it has got to mean free tuition at public colleges and universities. Now, is that a radical idea to suggest? It is absolutely common sense. Look, we are competing in a global economy. And if we are to succeed, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. It is insane that hundreds of thousands of bright young people, qualified young people, can't go to college because their families lack the funds. And I want, by the way, every kid in Maine, every kid in Vermont in the 4th grade and in the 6th grade or whatever, to know that if he or she studies hard, does well in school, they will be able to get a college education regardless of the income of their family. And we're also going to substantially lower student debt in this country. People say, well, Bernie, it's a great idea, but it's expensive. You're right, it is expensive. It costs about $70 billion a year. You know how we're going to pay for it? We're going to pay for it through a tax on Wall Street speculation. Everybody in this room knows that Wall Street's greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior drove this economy into the worst recession since the 1930s. When Wall Street went begging to the Congress for a bailout against my vote, they got that bailout. Now it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class of this country. This campaign is listening to women. And what women are asking is, how does it happen that they could sit in the same office, work for the same company as some guy at the other end of the room, do exactly the same work, and yet end up getting paid 79 cents on the dollar compared to that man? Now, there is no economic rationale for that. That is nothing more than old-fashioned sexism. I know that every man in this room will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity.